family. And of course some people understand by polygamy, or from the word polygamy, that the person only satisfies his sexual desire. There is no doubt that that is part of the deal, that that is part of the marriage. But the general principle regarding marriage, first and foremost, is that there is affection, affinity and mercy and tranquility between the husband and the wife. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, and from His ayat, from His signs, is that He created spouses from yourselves, so that you may find tranquility with them. And He has put love and mercy between you. Those are signs for the people who reflect, who think. And the enemies of Islam and those who are affected from those people who are from ourselves, from amongst ourselves, and they speak our language. And some women, of course, who have been maybe affected by them, they say that polygamy is only to do with satisfying one's sexual desire. And of course, as we said, that has some truth in it, but that is not the whole of the truth. It is possible that a man may marry one and he may not be able to satisfy his sexual desire through her, and he may go ahead and marry a second one, but that is not the only reason he gets married, or at least he should get married. One of the other reasons, and one very important reason, is to make sure that the women do not commit illegal sexual intercourse. Those women who are not married, and some of them may be young, as the Sheikh described, a young woman, for example, whose husband died. Why is she supposed to stay all her life without a husband? Why not for her to join the family? Or someone who's been divorced. So therefore, it must be understood that even from the point of view of the sisters and the women, that when the husband gets married to a second wife, that should not be treated as a direct challenge to the first, and that should not be understood as enmity between the wives. Rather, the way it should be understood is that they prefer one another over each other. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala describes some of the Sahaba radiallahu anhum as having that feature of character. They prefer others over themselves, even though they may have severe need. And sometimes I blame, the Sheikh said, the husband for creating problems. Because many times he does not deal with his wives justly. If he were to deal with his wives justly, very often they would become like sisters to one another. Some brothers tell us, and we inquired for a second time if it was really true. Some brothers tell us, those who are married more than one, that some of his wives, they treat one another like sisters. They wear each other's clothes, they cook together in the kitchen. Yeah, it does exist. When one of them gives birth, the other helps out. And that is, of course, in stark contrast to some situations where the wives hate one another, they don't want to see one another, their children never have any contact between themselves, they grow up completely in isolation. This one is in the east, the other one is in the west, their children don't have a clue about each other. So this is not polygamy. This has become punishment for that individual, because that affects his health. He has high blood pressure, diabetes because of that, and everything else. So therefore, he should not carry on with this course of action. And he should marry only one. And even if that one is not a pious woman, then he should let her go in a good and just way, and Allah inshallah will replace her with someone better if he so desires. Brothers and sisters, polygamy is something that has existed for a very long time. And this is a practice that was practiced by the messengers and prophets of Allah alayhimus salatu wassalam. Most prophets had more than one wife. And the one who was the one who had more than anyone else was Sulaiman alayhi salatu wassalam, one of the greatest prophets from the children of Israel alayhi salatu wassalam. He had 1,000 wives. من بني إسرائيل. He is the one who made the dua in the Quran, mentioned in the Quran, "O my Lord, grant me a kingdom that will not be granted to anyone after me." So therefore, look at the strength of the individual that he is able to look after 1,000 women. And one night he said that he would have relations with 100 women, and the hadith is in Bukhari, and he forgot to say Insha'Allah, if Allah wills. And he said, I will today have relations with 100 women, and each one of them will give birth to a child who will become a warrior in the path of Allah. And he forgot to say Insha'Allah, and due to that, only one of them gave birth to a child. And the Prophet ﷺ died, and he had 9 wives. So therefore, this is not something new. This has been practiced by the Prophet, the best of mankind, alayhi salatu wassalam, for generations. But the greatest number that a Muslim can marry, as we have said, is 4, because people are different in their abilities and strengths. The limit has been set at 4. The Sahaba radiallahu anhum, they used to practice polygamy even before Islam. Some of the Sahaba used to have 10 wives, 8 wives before they embraced Islam, and the Prophet ﷺ told them to keep 4 and divorce the rest. Because 4 was something that was allowed, the limit. And there are many proofs. This ayah that we're dealing with is one of the most famous proofs. But there are others, like the saying of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala regarding the saying of the believers, O our Lord, grant us from our wives and our children. So he didn't say from our wife. And that shows also that this is from the practices that Islam has re-established and reaffirmed. And in the hadith of those 3 individuals who came to the Prophet ﷺ and to the houses of his wives, one of them said, I will never marry women. And the Prophet ﷺ gathered the companions radiallahu anhum, and he addressed them and said, as for me, then I marry women, I take women in marriage. And he didn't say woman. And whoever turns away from my sunnah, that he is not from me. And one day the Prophet ﷺ addressed his companions as he used to do, and he said, marry from amongst yourselves.
Can I just make an announcement for the sisters to remain quiet and listen to the translation? I'm sitting here, really, besides Sheikh, I can hear the sisters talking.
No. Even though the topic is... Now, the Prophet ﷺ said, get married between yourselves and get large in number, great multitude. And he used to hope ﷺ that his followers would be half of the whole number of the residents of Jannah, of paradise. And of course the Prophet ﷺ will be proud to count us amongst his ummah, his nation, only if we are truly men in the full sense of the word, not useless scum who are worth nothing. In which case he will say alayhi salatu wasalam, take them far away from me. Not like those people who leave their children and abandon them and don't take care of them, just like tortoises do. Those slow moving animals, they come, they lay their eggs and they leave. They say, you look after yourselves, as if